Welcome back to Talking Cities with Matt Enstis and friends. We are happy to be getting back into providing you with cultivating conversations as we discuss healthier, more sustainable communities and explore the beauty and creativity in it all. As you can see, I've added friends to the podcast name, so I'll not be your only host, but you will be educated and entertained by some of our team's thought leaders.
Welcome to another Talking Cities podcast. We have a friend of mine and someone, would you say, evangelist of AI in the area and throughout the world. These white papers, documentation, books. I want to introduce Professor Joaquin Carbonara. He's from the Buffalo State University, and we're really honored to have him today. We're excited because he can't wait to talk about AI, but I'm holding him back right now because I have this machine called my hands holding him back. We're using an analog tool called restraints.
Yeah, we'll keep this under control.
Okay,
Yeah.
I appreciate it. So here's the deal. We're going to start the tone off today, right away. Today we're talking about fear in the general public, the gaps in understanding AI, and how generative AI helps us predict the future. With that, I just wanted to have an intro with the professor and maybe talk about yourself, and then we'll jump right into the podcast.
Thanks, Sam. A pleasure to be here. I went to school at the University of California in San Diego, where I got my PhD in mathematics in one of the hottest areas in discrete mathematics, that is combinatorics. I came from Venezuela originally with a full scholarship, and my brothers were all musicians. I grew up in a very little town in the mountains of the Andes, where for the first 15 years I had very little contact with any kind of technology. I currently teach and lead a program in data science at Buffalo State. And I'm thrilled to be here and talk about AI, which I consider to be the biggest change in my life. I've gone through lots of changes and I've seen a lot of transformations, but the transformative power of generative AI is hard to quantify and understand for people that do not know the details. And I love the topic you chose. Fear is basically what comes from not understanding what's going on.
Yeah, so one of the things we're really excited to hear about, like from your perspective, like sitting at Buffalo State, and not only Buffalo State, but you're constantly aware of the latest and greatest in AI tech, trends, and of course, there's a little bit of an arms race. Who's got the best AI? Who has the most power? And there's a power requirement. There's two sides of this. Is a great opportunity, and again, there's the cost or the exhaust of AI. But that's another podcast. So with that, I just really like to kick this off and just tell us about what is the current fear with the market and people in general, Joe Public, and let me understand the gaps. What does AI solve for? Is it a helpful tool? So I'd like to hear your explanation.
The first thing to realize is that hundreds of millions of people are using it. And to find out about AI, all you need to do is step out of your house or turn on your laptop or turn on your media source. There is so much going on and there is so much excitement out there that you will hear many points of view. But I think the difficulty is not that there is an overflow of information, that is very difficult to select the right sources. So fear, to a great extent, comes from looking at a tool or a device without understanding the foundations of it. And this is something that we will address briefly during this presentation. You will hear in this conversation probably things that you may not have thought about before. There is a very single-minded point of view towards AI, and it is as a chatbot. Mostly everybody looks at the generative AI from the chatbot, the most popular, ChatGPT, or many of the other similar products like Gemini, Grok, and Claude. What I'd like to focus on today is how AI is the natural evolution to how humans connect and understand nature and the world around them. So it is worth it to put it under context. In this way, we'll see that it is a tool that It is different than every previous tool, and that's why it's so transformative. But at the same time, it is part of the natural evolution. Thinking about our origins, we had many tools to remember information and to become more successful. Hunting, reproducing, and in other things that are necessary. Songs, originally, hundreds of years ago, songs and poems were used as a way to remember things and to transmit information. Actually, my parents, who are artisans, both of them from the south of Italy, they taught us everything at home through stories, little stories with a moral that are very easy to remember, and I still remember them all the time. These are very ancient tools. Writing came later, right, in the 1500s, and the Gutenberg press, of course. Writing started much before then, but the Gutenberg press made a huge difference in society. Obviously, not everybody on the planet knew about it. Farmers didn't hear about it until whenever things affected them, which probably wasn't right away. Later on, computers helped us remember things, store things. Databases allowed us bring to a large scale information and also make it stable, reliable. So banks use database. Now, what is the role of generative AI in this context? Generative AI is a tool that uses techniques from machine learning, in particular, the attention mechanism and the semantic embeddings to allow us to understand and retrieve data from unstructured data. This seems a little unstructured materials. Human beings, when you're talking about a fact in the past, you simply look in your memories and things come up and then you say what you remember. Generative AI uses a similar process called the semantic embeddings first to store information in a way that is not just the grammatical or form that determines where it is, but the semantic, the meaning of it. Now, that is an issue that was very difficult to solve because things have many meanings, right? Generative AI is able to retrieve information based on the meaning of what you're asking to retrieve and not just on the form. Now, if you're using relational databases, which is a classic tool in computer science, the data needs to be stored in an organized fashion, and then what you retrieve is the piece of information in a particular place. So putting all this together, and if we understand how generative AI works and understanding the magic of its emergent properties, then we can find ways to use it effectively. And every day there is new ways of harnessing the power of generative AI. This tool, as I say, is something that I don't see anything to parallels, even though it is, in the end, a computer program using statistics, probabilities, and tools for machine learning. It produces something that is new and never seen before. And that's why it has spread like fire.
Just give me like some of the things we talked about. Generative AI, why it has its spread. It's a new tool, revolutionary tool, but why is there so many like fears, job disruption fears, economic uncertainty, and ultimately AI replacing everything? Can you give us like a point of view there?
Yes, I see the fear in the population as a sign that they cannot measure its impact. When we have other tools, most people more or less can determine how dangerous that is or how to handle it. Say you're using a knife to chop tomatoes, and then you know what is the danger. You can cut yourself, and you're careful how to do it. But I'd like to propose a new way to determine the responsibility, if you wish, of an action using AI. So we have responsibility viewed in many ways. For instance, you have copyrights, you have intellectual property. So responsibility has the benefits, right, and has the disadvantages. If you use something and you are liable for it, you pay consequences. If you do something and people like it, then you also get the consequences, in this case, positive consequences. And there is a lot of questions about, is AI going to take my job? Is AI responsible for me losing my job? And what is the future of AI? Should we be afraid of it? Now, I would like to propose, and remember you heard this for the first time in Sam's podcast. Here's what I propose. I propose that if you use a tool that has no influence from another person, so you have the tool, you're alone in a room, and you are the only one using the tool, then you deserve full responsibility and full benefit and consequences of it. In other words, you have a pen, you are in a room locked, you write with that pen, you deserve to sell that book. It's your material, it's your baby. Now, nowadays, there is a lot of issues of blaming AI for things, right? There are a lot of issues of saying you don't deserve the copyrights or the intellectual property because AI did it, right? So I propose the following, that if you have a language model in your own computer and you are in a room alone with no internet, there is no other human beings influencing you, you and the AI alone in a room, and you write something with it, I claim we should give the complete intellectual property and copyrights to the person there. Why? Because the agency, the initiative, the idea came all from you. So whether you use a spell checker or whether you are using books for reference, you have a whole library in your room with you, you deserve credit because you led the effort. So if you have a local model and you're running the AI in your model where you know that.
So I'm going to talk about how does it all work? It's complicated. All these things you're talking about, transformers and generative AI, what does it all mean? And can you explain to us like how these models trained on large data sets? Is it magical? Is it a magic machine back there run on processors, GPUs? What does it all mean? So can you give us a little bit of demystify how it all works so we might be able to calm the, would you say, the storm of folks out there just understanding how this all works?
Great. Yes, this is one of my favorite topics. The transformer is a machine learning model in neural networks. This model, what it does, is able to compresses information in a way that is lossy. So compressing information means somebody tells you something that is long, and then you reduce it in such a way that it represents the long thing. So if you have a book that all he has is letter A, from beginning to end in 300 pages, you can summarize this by saying, this is a book of 300 pages with only A's in it. Now, that is a compression that is not lossy. You can reproduce it. But what AI does is compresses many properties of human writings and images and other information. So rather than say the frequency of the letters, that is only one property, it compresses thousands of properties. So in the end, the language model, what it has is a set of numbers that allows information to be processed through it. Now, it is hard to describe something that is new if you don't have a common experience. If I want to explain to somebody how is a movie theater in, say, France versus United States, you have a common ground. You have movie theater here, I can tell some differences there. But this tool is so new that a lot of people have no idea how mathematics works and how machine learning works. But getting back to the tool, so the transformer, basically, after it is created, it has the ability to predict new words based on a new context. So there are two stages in the creation of uses machine. There is a pre-training, that's why generative pre-trained transformer The pre-train is the part that is done before that costs a lot of money and it gives you a file with lots of numbers, but happen to be the weights of the connections between the neurons. And the second part is when you use it. When you use it, then the context that you produce is used to try to generate one word at a time of the answer of the AI. So this tool is very transparent. Anybody can host a language model in their computer. They can run it. They can look at how it works. Now, in the end, it's simply a mechanical process that produces the magic in the end. Now, the question is, what is the part of this magic that is really impressive? What's impressive is that what the programming does is allows the machine to connect what is talking about now with what is done before in the context window. So just the same way that when you talk about your, say, life, you remember as much as you can, and you actually, if something is too far back, you may make mistakes. The ability to connect what you're trying to do now with memory of a certain amount is what is called the context window. Now, this magic here, the result of using a way of creating meaning from words, semantic embedding, and then use the attention mechanism to remember using the semantic embedding what is related to what you want to say. So these things together create the magic.
It sounds like the way you explained it is not only magical, it's a little bit of math.
Yes.
There's a little bit of math in there, right?
Math is just a language.
Yes.
Again, math is not a tool. It is a tool, but it's more of an intellectual tool. It's a language.
It's a very sophisticated language, but mathematicians use this to help with the magic. Moving on now, this is very interesting discussions, and just walk us through generative AI. What can you do with it, and what can't they do with this tool?
You can process information, and what information is also needs to be discussed, but allows you to process information in such a way that you can organize the information. It can create new information depending on certain parameters like the temperature that can be more or less accurate depending on what you input first. It can help you do research. It can help you basically anything that you can do with language, including visual language and sound, you can do with AI if you are clever enough.
So tell us what you can't do.
What you cannot do with AI is there are obvious things that cannot do. So what is there with language that we can do that you cannot do with AI? There is all these questions about creativity. Can AI be creative? I unfortunately don't have a very good definition of creativity in the human mind. And so since we understand creativity in the human mind, I'm not sure if AI cannot do it, but it is clear that up to now, some of the big creations of the human mind, music and research and other areas, not being able to be created with AI. But every day there is evidence that many things that were considered to be only part of the human nature, now it is being part of generative AI. One particular transition that happened at the beginning of the 20th century is information was at one point considered to be something intrinsic in the human mind, but the computer scientists, Turing and others, they transformed, Claude Shannon in particular, they transformed information from being something that is inside your mind and you can only feel into something that is external. So there is all information theory from Shannon that, along with results from computer science, we're able to generate the magic that we have today with generative AI.
Share a moment when you realized AI would change everything.
I realized it from day one. The reason being that since I was aware of myself 5 years old, 6 years old, I realized that there is something really odd about natural language. How do we understand each other? Very satisfactory answers to this. A lot of people have thought about this in history. The reason I went into mathematics is because mathematics as a language, it traces back the truth to assumptions, and it tells you how you arrive to conclusions. But with natural language and communication, there is something really magic that happens, that when you learn something first in short-term memory, you repeat it a few times, then you sleep on it, then the next day, all of a sudden you have the awareness of knowledge. But this awareness of knowledge only is expressed when you say something. So you do not know that you know something until you say it. So it's not like it's stored in your brain as a module. The brain as a database, a relational database, is a model that didn't convince me as far as reflecting what the mind does. But when I realized from day one that you could create something that mimics the process of creation of information by creation of sentences and speech, immediately I saw how this had an enormous potential to explain something that I've been looking for all my life.
That's very profound. We'd love to talk about that a little further, but we have more time. So the next segment is really to get your feedback on how is AI going to predict, or can it predict, the future, stocks, illnesses, and scientific insight? So one of the things I want to basically ask you is, can AI predict the market reliably? Can it help with illness predictions and forecasting? Just basically, I'd like to have your feedback on those talking points.
The crucial point to understand, in my opinion, is that generative AI is an orchestrator. So generative AI as a tool is not the one doing the work. What does the work are the algorithms, the scientific research, the discussions. What AI is able to do is organize this better than ever before. So when I am tired and I'm trying to solve a problem, I make mistakes because I may forget something. Remembering is very expensive for me. I don't know if other people have an easier time with it, but remembering things well is very expensive. It takes a lot of energy. And what AI does is address what is important in the information provided related to what you're prompting now. So from that point of view, then predicting the future with AI will be much easier than before, because as an orchestrator, it can bring together tools from machine learning, science, and every field of human endeavors. So can use social science, humanities, art, bring it all together.
If we're talking about the future, let's talk about the past. I have a question, is basically, how does it learn from the previous data? And specifically around models. Models don't remember like humans, do they?
Yes, this is a wonderful question. This is what really completely sold me, one of the things that completely sold me into AI. People must have, one way or another, realized that some of the memories they have are false. You remember, oh yeah, when I was little, dog bit me. And then all of a sudden the parents say, no, not dog bit you. You saw that in a movie and you think that you got confused. And so basically what AI is doing is creating a different, novel way to juggle information which is from the past. Now, here is the thing. In the past, in the data collected, there are outdated facts, there is poor annotation, there is biased or low quality text. Then, as you process this, there are memorization bias, attention failures, cross-modal misalignments. These are all problems that AI has. But if you think about it, the humans have it as well, but in humans, you cannot really measure them. AI has other tools, like you have fine-tuning, and then you have things that can be done correctly or not. Eyes can be overconfident or not, but you can tune it. When a human being is overconfident, what can you do? And then you have domain shift. You have also people have catastrophic forgetting sometimes. And in the end, you have also context fragility, decoding traps. And so basically, The generative AI has this rich environment that is so exciting to look at, and people every day coming up with new ways of exploiting it. And it's a whole new world, so many low-hanging fruits. It's amazing.
So I always have problems during Thanksgiving because of my maybe too much glucose in my brain because I need more power to remember. But that's a great explanation. I'd love to continue discussing that like any podcast. We have only so much time, but I just, any final words about like, where do you see, give me like, if you had your crystal GPU in front of you, what's the future bringing us? What do you see the future in the next 3 years? Just to calm the folks down listening, how do you explain to them is don't be fearful, use AI as any gaps in your skill set.
I totally see where you're going to. And now I think that we are in for good news. I think that a lot of the fear is fueled by people's frustration having in the past tried to use new tools and not being able to succeed, right? You try to play the violin and then turns out that you're not good for it. Now, what's happening is that generative AI in a new way is really an enabler in many more senses than other tools. So what I see coming up in the near future is that people will discover that the reason they couldn't accomplish certain goals in their life is because they had gaps of knowledge. Like you're trying to take calculus, you don't learn algebra well. You're trying to dance, but you never did some running before or something that makes you fit. And from what I can see, generative AI is a fabulous tool bringing information to you at your level. If I am in certain things, I'm at the level of an 8th grader, it will prepare me so that I get to a good level and I can perform and be competitive. I see generative AI as an equalizer as far as people having the information to accomplish what they want. Now, just like any tool, it can be misused. But what if AI, in addition to solve the gaps, also would solve some of the intrinsic questions that humans have been asking, like what is worth it doing in life, how we are all connected, how we are all equal. So not sure if I am aiming too high, but the fact that more information is out there and the fact that so many philosophers and so many great people in the past have come up with great ideas, if those ideas are disseminated and everybody has access to them, something good is going to come out of it. It's got to.
It just has to. And definitely we can continue this discussion. But I do want to close on the podcast about how do folks get a hold of you? And are you available maybe to chat? I know you are part of a group in Buffalo, an AI Coffee Club. We also are having an event. So maybe talk about where they can reach you, some of the things we're doing in AI in Buffalo and beyond. How's that?
Yep, great. My email is one easy way to get in touch with me. It's my first name, Joaquin, Carbonara @gmail.com. And I'd love to hear from anybody. I go to every AI event I can go to. It's like a brotherhood. I love this thing. It's that there is a lot of people that is really excited about this tool, and we work very well together. All the time at every university in town and talk to a lot of people. With Sam, we've organized a whole bunch of things, and I'm looking forward to continuing talking to people about this.
I'm looking forward to having T-shirts. You're going to be the team AI leader. You're like, let's see, Magellan or something. If you were like an AI leader back in like the exploration days, who would you be?
I'll have to dig that out because that's a very good question. And there were all kinds of explorers. And now here's an interesting thing. According to Harari, when the ships from Columbus arrived to America, the indigenous people saw it and they couldn't make anything out of it. They thought, is that a big rock? It's like you cannot see things that you don't understand. And this is something that you can also verify by looking at magicians. What they do is they create an environment where certain things you do not understand, and sure enough, you cannot see them, and the magic happens there. So I see myself actually a long line in my family, every generation in my family, as far as I can see, they were all explorers.
Curious explorers from the Carbonara family. So it was great having you on today. I really appreciate it. It took you some time leaving the university. I know it's tough to leave, but we appreciate your time and your commitment to the evangelizing, not only AI, but math. And it's really a pleasure being your friend, hearing your theories, thoughts, and you're full of knowledge. And if anybody sees Joaquin in the street, I think he'll be open to talk about pretty much anything, but mostly ask him a question about the state of AI in the next 2 to 3 years.
Thank you. Thanks so much. It was a pleasure to be here.
Thanks again. And that's it for Talking Cities.
Thank you for listening to the Talking Cities podcast with Matt Enstis and friends. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast on all podcast streaming platforms. Talking Cities is brought to you by the Buffalo Niagara Medical Campus, dedicated to furthering economic growth, igniting urban revitalization, and building a strong, thriving community. Using our mutual city methodology, we foster conversation and collaboration among anchor institutions, partners, and the community. Together, we address critical issues including job and business opportunities, healthy and active living, entrepreneurship, energy, access, and transportation. The Buffalo Niagara Medical Campus, working together to change our city's future.